I just have two questions. The first one is, could you guys spend a little time lifting the veil of what it takes to run for a statewide office? How much money do you need to raise? How many people do you need to have sort of supporting you? Just generally, what are the mechanics behind it? And then the second one's for Kumar. Have you seen The Wire?
Yeah.
How do you deal with people like Clay Davis?
Which character is that?
He's the state senator who was.
Oh, yeah. Well, first let me say that in my first race, I had to get roughly I live in a Democratic district, and our elections are in the off year. So although 110,000 people live in the district, I calculated I needed roughly 4,000 votes to win the primary in the off year in 1990. And I spent $29,000. I raised 15 of it and borrowed 14 from my parents. And I knocked on almost 8,000 doors. I figured half the time people wouldn't be home, so I wanted to meet at least 4,000 people because I believed that was the number of votes I would need to win. How do I deal with people like that? Listen, in politics, if you look at the Maryland House of Delegates, it's 141 people, there are 47 senators. They represent, and I know their legislatures are exactly the same, they represent a cross-section of the society of our state. And you've got the vast majority are basically very average people. There are some who are just absolutely outstanding, and there's an equal percentage who are really very scummy. And it's a little bit like dealing with average people in your everyday life, just more so, it's a little more concentrated. Yeah, I have never had difficulty getting along with anybody as long as we had something in common. And in the legislature, and especially now that I'm in leadership, it's always what's the next vote. I don't have any permanent friends or permanent enemies. Well, I have a couple of permanent friends, but I have no permanent enemies in the legislature because he or she and I might need each other's vote in the next, for the next bill coming down the pike. And so, honestly, that's my answer. And that answer deals not just with that kind of a character, but it deals with literally anybody, because I will tell you, in life and in politics, people are pretty even-keeled until there's that one episode or issue where they go berserk. Everybody is pretty honest, but I'll tell you, none of us are beyond temptation. And there are times when I have literally stopped myself from parking for free at BWI, knowing that I could get away with it with my House of Delegates tags, thinking, do I want to see this on the front page of the Washington Post? Even I am not beyond wanting to steal occasionally. So, just joking.
Can you cut that part of the tape?
So anyway, that really is my generic answer to that entire issue of how to deal with people.
I raised 60,000. That shows in Iowa, I raised $60,000, and this was in 2001 because I was it was 2002 election I was running in, and I knocked on 10,000 doors. And Raghu used to Raghu Devagupta, he used to call and ask me how I was doing, because and Anil Maman was also involved in my elections, and they were there to help me. And when my opponent attacked me, because I had knocked on 10,000 doors, when my opponent attacked me and said, do we really need somebody who was not born and brought up in Iowa? Are her values same as ours? People said, well, when I talked to her, her values were very similar to mine. And
actually, didn't they also criticize you for being a Brahmin?
Yes, I'm being very kind to her. So they said, so what's the big difference? We know Swati talks with Indian accent, and we know when she will be on the floor, she'll have a little bit of Indian accent. So it's really, I did not try to change who I am. And that was one thing, time and time again, I was told, we love you for who you are, don't change.
if I can just address that. You know, we're talking about the practical things. You're talking about like money and like volunteer resources and things like that. I just will state though the number one thing. If any of you are really interested in like getting elected or shaping policy directly, the number one core thing is that voters vote for people who are like them. Mm-hmm. If they can see themselves in you. You may say, well, God, that really knocks me right out of it. But what Swati said is key. The key point was the voters wanted to know if her values were like theirs.
Yeah.
Now think about it. How she looks, how she talks, her name, totally different, can't relate to anybody in the district, right?
No.
But what do they connect with? They must connect very powerfully with something, her values. And here's what I would say. I've never been with her in Iowa, but I would probably say that she represents Iowa values more powerfully than her Iowa grown opponents.
Right.
You see what I'm getting at? So that's the number one thing. That's why I went on that whole monologue about me. It wasn't about me. It's actually to show you what you need to win the election. So allow yourself to be yourself. Connect on something. So you're here for some issues really touched you or hurt you or has compelled you to be here. Be open to that, whatever that is. And you know individually what that is. That's got to be there because it doesn't matter the money that you have or the organization. You may not prevail if people can't see themselves in you and connect with you, okay? Because at our level, we got to go voter to voter. And even with the TV, when I ran for mayor, it was a different campaign, and I'd be on debating, on television. I think even then, people can see if you're really there for them. And if you're new, if you're of Indian origin, you're going to have a real connection. Now, the other point, I am going to be real short. There's a difference, though, in attitude between Indian politics and American politics. And here's what I mean. Let's say with my dad's friends, they go into politics to be above people. You go into politics to be below people and serve them. You get it? You have that attitude, they'll see that. Like, don't come in there, man, like an Indian politician. That's like, you're not going to make it. Okay, seriously. You'll have to have a whole bunch of money to overcompensate for that arrogance. Okay. All right. Now, let me get to the practical matter. I beat the incumbent with maybe around $60,000. It was very hard for me to raise money. And then I won this last time. I think I raised around $150,000. Detroit, though, it's a low money district because all you have to do is win the primary. Detroit is an urban area, so it's 90% Democratic. So I would always have to win a plurality in a primary. I actually made my political comeback in a 10-person race in a recount. I got in a race at the last minute. I always end up doing that. Sometimes I actually work out, but it's like the surprise factor. Really what it is, I can't get up enough guts to actually decide to run until I have to do it. So then I'll do it. Okay, so I've been the reluctant candidate almost my entire career. But that's the key. Whatever that issue is that's personal for you, work on that issue, and then you'll actually build support that way. The way to raise money is to raise it from your friends, the people you know. Make a list of everyone you know, maybe ask them for $250 a piece. This network right here is very important. The last point, very, very last point I'm going to say about this. I got elected to my office 2 years after I returned to Detroit from being away at school. Now, how did I do that? Remember, I had no parents, no money, no family, and then I beat a former incumbent in my first race. You know how? Because I came from Washington, D.C., and I had this little internship that got me here. If you're in an internship right now, in college, undergrad, this can be your stepping stone to elective office, really. And I can talk to you guys about that separately. Or whatever affiliation you have right here in D.C. If your district or home base is outside of D.C., this is looked favorably upon that you're involved here in Washington.